Watch the waves. As an investor, I am always watching the waves. The waves are trends. These are trends that can transform our society. We can go back in time and look at some of the big technological waves that have actually reshaped our civilization. The internet, first of all, was a tsunami of a wave. It literally changed every business and industry on the planet and all of our lives. It gave birth to so many companies, so many great investments. But there are much smaller waves. There are waves happening right now around all sorts of technology. There's waves around the blockchain. There are waves around brain-computer interface technology. There are waves around space travel and all the technology being used by Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos to take humanity into space. There are waves happening around, we've seen waves happening in the past around mobile. The whole iPhone and Android waves, those were enormous. Literally, an entrepreneur who catches a wave has a huge advantage. If you come in at just the right time and catch that wave, for example, when the iPhone launched, when it first launched, when it was the first truly compelling smartphone that took off in a big way, you could create a little application, not even a great application because there wasn't much competition, but simply because you were catching that wave at just the right time, it would propel you. And you could make millions and millions of dollars off of an application today that nobody would even bother to download. This is the power of waves. And I tell entrepreneurs out there, when you're out there, when you are like a surfer. So an entrepreneur is like a surfer. You're looking not to what waves have already happened because that's too late. If a wave has passed, it doesn't matter. You have to look to the future. What are the waves coming now that will transform us in the coming decade? And what are the biggest ones? And can you position yourself to capture it? Now, if you're too early and you start paddling much before the wave comes in with your company, you'll run out of steam. You'll run out of energy before the wave reaches you. And it won't work. Your timing is bad. And if you're too slow, if you miss that wave and the wave has already passed, no matter how hard you paddle as a surfer, you will never catch up. Entrepreneurs who launch late, once the wave is gone, they don't catch up. It's literally just like a surfer. You have to catch the wave just at the right time, and then it can take your small company of just a few people and propel it into a big business. Let me give you some examples of startups the wave has made an enormous difference. Facebook. We all know Facebook. They came around at just the right time. When people were getting online at the right time, right? In a mass number, everybody had internet access, and they allowed people to connect with each other. Now, there were a few companies before Facebook that tried social networking that didn't go anywhere, but Facebook hit it just at the right time with the right solution. And it took that company that was started, in a dorm room in Harvard and propelled it into this, multinational, enormous business. This happens over and over again. We saw it with YouTube. Before YouTube, I can tell you I was around. I saw there were a lot of video startups, a lot of startups putting up video, but literally they were too early. Broadband wasn't here yet. Not enough people had broadband. As soon as YouTube came around, it was the perfect timing. Everybody was starting to sign up for broadband. They had the quality of the video was starting to get good enough for people to have a real entertainment experience. That was the wave that propelled them. So, as investors, when we're looking at any startup that we hope can become a unicorn, we know that if it is catching a wave, it is a good investment. And that is why many investors invest in the same thing at the same time, because we're all looking out there at the future and we're all placing our bets. And we know, this company at this time has a chance to become really big. The beauty of a wave is that, an entrepreneur, if they're just out on their surfboard and there are no waves, it's only their own momentum. It's only their own energy that will get them forward. But when there's a wave, when people are naturally doing something in society or just ready for it and all the conditions, the infrastructure, everything else is primed, that will give them that extra push that they couldn't do themselves. A lot of times, waves are generated not just by technology, but also by the media and society and culture. Like we will be focused. Culture will be intently focused on certain things at certain times, and that will drive the business, They will get a lot of attention. Look at the startups when you read every day the news. Look at the startups making the headlines. These startups are on waves, right? They're on topics that people care about. That's why they're being written about. And that in turn creates a virtuous circle where more and more people are driving to use their service. During the COVID-19 pandemic, when the coronavirus swept the world, here was a company perfectly positioned to capture. It was a disastrous wave for some, like it was wiping a lot of businesses out. But for certain companies, it was the perfect wave. Zoom, the technology company that allows people to collaborate online with video, everybody being trapped in their home, this pandemic turned out to be a wave for them, a tsunami for them. They were on the front lines of every news publication out there. People were reading about them, and people were like, oh, everybody's using Zoom. I will use Zoom too. So waves can come in many forms. There are also social waves, like trends, just things people are doing. There was an entrepreneur, and he was in the clothing business. Clothing business is very cutthroat. It's hard to break through. It's dominated by a few big companies, big brands like the Gap that are dominating clothing. But this one entrepreneur saw an opportunity. He saw a wave when it was small, when nobody else recognized it, but he saw it could get pretty big. And this was yoga. So he saw a lot of people starting to do yoga. And there were really no clothing brands really just focused on yoga. So he decided, let's try this. He made yoga clothing. He saw that yoga people are very passionate and they want certain things. And when he gave it to them, they would pay top dollar. This company grew incredibly fast. Now it's a dominant player in clothing in general. Lululemon. They caught the yoga wave. There's another company. Extreme sports were catching on in the United States. People love to challenge themselves. They, running obstacle courses, really pushing their limits, crawling under barbed wire, doing something that they never thought they could do and feeling that sense of achievement. Well, Tough Mudders came along. They saw this. They started running these extreme competitions that were crazy. You're crawling through mud, you're scaling walls, you're doing all this stuff, you're avoiding electric shocks. They capitalized on this trend of extreme fitness and made a name for themselves and grew and grew and grew. So whatever the business, as an investor, if I'm looking for unicorns, I'm also looking at the waves, and I want to see that they have caught the wave. I hope you enjoyed the talk. If you liked it, share it with your friends or subscribe to our channel. You can also come to founderspace.com and check out our 3-month online startup program, as well as my books, Make Elephants Fly, Surviving a Startup, and The 5 Forces. I'm also available on all the major social networks. Just search for Founderspace.